I have to say to them, it is remarkable, facing an insurgency, that elections took place at all. It's remarkable that there were 6,000 polling stations open at all. And that is a tribute to our forces and other forces making it possible for this infant Afghan democracy to have an election organised by itself in the first place. And we are there, and I tell them why we're there. We are there to protect the streets of Britain. We are there because Al-Qaeda poses a threat to us as well as it does to other countries. And we are there because if Al-Qaeda took control again or had an influence in Afghanistan under a Taliban government, then the people of this country would not be safe.
Clegg. Speaker, I'm grateful to the Prime Minister for his reply, but I just don't think we can live in denial about the total lack of legitimacy of the present Afghan government. General McChrystal himself has said that the job of our troops is becoming more difficult because of corruption in government. Hundreds of thousands of votes were given to President Karzai by block votes from a warlord accused of war crimes. So if President Karzai is declared the winner of this flawed election, can I be precise, will the Prime Minister urge Karzai to immediately form a government of national unity, bringing in opponents from other political groups and other ethnic groups, or he will risk losing the support of the international community?
I'm grateful for his comments, but the whole purpose of the commission that is looking at the conduct of elections is to eliminate those votes where there has been ballot rigging or fraud. And that is why it has taken so much time to examine these issues. And I hope he will wait till he sees the report of what the Commission has done, what they recommend, and what they propose, whether it is for a second round or whether they have come to a conclusion about who is the winner. As far as President Karzai is concerned and the future, I will also talk about this in a few minutes, but I talked to President Karzai yesterday. I also talked to Dr. Abdullah, who is the second candidate in the elections. I asked them for an assurance that they will sign a contract with us and the other allied powers about the elimination of corruption, the proper conduct of government, the appointment of governors who can actually manage in the provinces, and the appointment of junior officials who can do that as well as asking him, as I will report later, to support our forces with a proper number of Afghan forces working with them.
Gordon Prentice.
2 years ago, we lost blue light accident and emergency in Burnley, and everything went to Blackburn, 25 miles away from where I live. At the furthest edge of the patch. And people in Burnley and Pendle, members of all political parties and none, want accident and emergency back in Burnley. And can I ask my friend this? As a first step, would he commission an independent review by clinicians from outside the area with no axe to grind? That's what people want.
Mr. Speaker, of course I understand his concerns and those of his constituents, and I'll ask the Health Secretary to meet him to talk about these issues. But as he knows, the reconfiguration of NHS services is a matter for the NHS locally. I understand that the review concluded in July, and it has been accepted by both primary care trusts and at the same time East Lancashire Hospitals Trust. And I understand there is a programme implementation board that's in place, and the board is confident that they will not undermine services locally. But he will want to have that meeting with the Health Secretary, and he can come back to me after it.
Eve Webb.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will appreciate that falling mortgage rates are of no value to most pensioners, whilst falling savings rates are actually leaving them out of pocket. At the same time, the things that pensioners do spend their money on, the cost of them, like council tax, food and fuel, are rising rapidly. Does he accept, therefore, that a 2.5% pension rise in April will leave many pensioners out of pocket, and what's he planning to do about it?
First of all, in the light of what we knew was happening to interest rates, and I hope you will agree with me that it is important that interest rates are low and not high at this stage. In the light of what we knew happening, the Chancellor made proposals in the budget to improve the individual savings account. And he made proposals for people to be able to invest more in that individual savings account tax-free. At the same time, he knows that we have taken measures. The pension credit is available to 2 million pensioners. At the same time, the winter fuel allowance will be paid in the next few weeks to pensioners, with a higher rate for those who are over 80. And we're determined to do our best to ensure that even in a low inflation environment, the pension will rise by at least 2.5%. So we are taking the measures that are necessary to make sure that pensioners are protected against what is a recession that is hitting every country. But in our country, we have made special measures to help the unemployed, homeowners, and, I tell them, pensioners as well.
David Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that the best way to resolve the Royal Mail dispute would be to get the parties around the negotiating table? And if he does, will he tell Lords Young and Mandelson to stop to concentrate on that and stop attacking the CWU?
Mr. Speaker, we want a settlement of this dispute, but we want to say that this dispute is not in the interests of anybody. And I have to say that if Royal Mail start to lose major contracts like those of some of the major firms in this country, it will be difficult for them to regain these contracts over a short period of time. So I know that government ministers are working actively to make sure that the parties, the management and the workforce are negotiating. I hope that they will do so, and I hope that this unnecessary strike can be prevented.
Peter Bottomley.
Experts in reputation management are reported as saying that their original injunction gave them, Carter Ruck, the power to prevent what was said in Parliament being reported. No court should grant such an order, and I intend to report them to the Law Society for asking for the injunction. Would the Prime Minister see if it's possible that any court that grants a secret injunction or an emergency injunction should have a copy placed in the library of the House of Commons and in the press gallery here, if necessary hiding the name of a child or in grave national security? And will he also ask if any such emergency order is reviewed the next working day at the Court of Appeal?
Well, I may say I'm pleased he has raised this issue, because I think it's important that I and the Justice Secretary can say something to him about the concerns that he's raised. This is an issue where an injunction has been awarded, but it's been awarded in the context where it has to remain secret, and people are not told what the outcome is generally. The Justice Secretary has talked to the parties concerned. He is looking into this issue. He will discuss the matter personally with the honourable member, and I hope that on the basis of what he suggests, progress can be made not just in this cases, but more generally to clear up what is an unfortunate area of the law.
Katie Clark.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will be aware that the SNP government has put a proposal for a coal power station at Hunterston in the planning framework in Scotland. Could he confirm that no such coal power station will be allowed to go ahead without carbon capture being in place?
I think she would agree with me that any new coal power station has got to be carbon capture compliant, and that is the issue that we wish to ensure happens in every area of the country in the future. We are planning major investments in carbon capture and storage. I've talked to people throughout the country who are wishing to make these investments, and I think it's important that we go ahead on that basis in the future.
Mark Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister, I know, is aware of the extent of the affordable housing crisis across rural Britain and many of the innovative ways in which local authorities are trying to address the problem through Section 106 agreements. But does the Prime Minister share the sense of bewilderment and anger of many of my constituents that